Welcome to another episode of RELIC Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting, relic, and treasure hunting. You can also call in to the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have. RELIC Radio is also now syndicated on goodtalkradio.com and has a show each Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Arizona time. You're listening to RELIC Radio of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. And welcome to another episode of RELIC Radio. We want to welcome all of our listeners, obviously, on Spreaker Live here. Also want to welcome all of our listeners that will be listening to the syndicated version on Good Talk Radio. That is at 4 o'clock Eastern every Sunday. And I want to encourage everybody to get in the chat. We're going to have a great show here tonight. I hope that you are interested in the Equinox because that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Ain't we, Jeff?
We sure are. And just before the show, I learned more about the Equinox than I'd ever learned before. So, and that was just in 5 minutes maybe. So we're going to have a great show. So, yeah. Have you been out hunting any this week, Seven?
No, this is I have produced 7 shows this week. Well, this is the 7th one. I've done 6. So I've been tied up all week long and trying to get everything together for everybody that's having problems and trying to get over those. We're experiencing some of the same problems as everybody else is, but we've been fortunate. All of our shows have gone on, and we do have the ability to at least be on the air. Now, we are going to have a little bit of problem on phone calls when we do open the phone lines up, which, let me remind you, it's going to be toward the top of the hour before we open up the phone lines because we want to get through the syndicated part of this show. But you know, Jeff, we're kicking off. It's not February yet. It's the last day of January. But we're kicking off a Women of Metal Detecting Month that's going to run the entire length of February. Now, I'm not going to tell you everybody that we're going to have, but I will tell you that they are all going to be women. And it's going to be an absolute blast for the next 4 shows, talking to those women. Now, you know, this is nothing new for us because we've had Sue Roberts on. We've had Barb on live at Virginia. We've had Sam Waters. We've had Becky Mackey. We've had Jocelyn. We've had Carolyn. Debbie with Minelab. And who am I forgetting? Probably somebody.
Carolyn, yeah.
Carolyn on. Yeah, we had Carolyn on. So, you know, and this is not going to exhaust it because we're going to have more ladies on throughout the year. And I know rednecks don't use this word, but we try to have a dichotomy on this show of great big variety of where you live and, you know, whether you're male or female, whether you're new or young or old or new to the hobby or an old experienced hunter or whatever. We just like to cover every bit of the ground, don't we?
We sure do. We love covering every bit of it. And then, of course, our guest now, I just realized, of course, she knows a lot about Equinox. And, of course, I was telling Seven and her that I know why she knows so much about it. When a man pulls a detector out of the box, he just throws the instruction manual away and says, I don't need that. But actually, you really do. That's why I learned about more than I've ever learned in the first 5 minutes of just talking to her. So.
But you're right. I mean, that's the way that men do. They don't want nobody telling them what to do. And Have you ever gone out traveling on a vacation or something, and you're trying to get to a spot and you can't find it, and you won't stop? A man won't stop mass directions. Am I right on that?
Buddy, I think that's what caused my last divorce. Was I didn't want to stop and ask for directions, but sure enough, man, we had some good ones over that one.
Yeah, and a woman, she didn't have a problem with just stopping and asking somebody that knows.
Oh yeah, and then she could say, 5 hours on down the road. Well, if you would have stopped 5 hours later and asked, well, we would have already been there. And then, of course, it turned out to be true.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while you miss out on some good opportunities. I remember me and Jeff were coming back from the Chattanooga show, and we missed one road that Siri was trying to tell us. My problem is that Siri has a female voice, and it's kind of hard for me to think that she knows what she's talking about. I thought I knew better, and so I went on. Have you ever been on a road like that, Jeff?
But I wouldn't be able to find it again. But, we turned, a 3-hour trip into about a 6-hour trip, just that one road. And it was every corner you went around, you could wipe your tail lights off. And then, no guardrail or nothing. I was scared. And, of course, if anybody's ever rode with 7, it's a good reason to be scared.
Yeah, and on that road, if you met another vehicle, somebody had to pull off and let somebody pass. It wasn't even that wide. And if you looked over, we were going down, so Jeff looked out his window, and I don't know how many 100 feet it was down to the bottom. People looked like ants. Houses looked like ants. It was a long way up.
It sure was.
Well, enough of our foolishness here. Let's get this show on the road. We've got Laurie Gagne tonight, our resident expert on the Equinox. What's going on tonight, Laurie?
Hi. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm so anxious to be here, especially to talk about the Equinox and everything I've learned about it. And I'm really anxious.
Now, you're not going to try to make me and Jeff look foolish, are you, tonight?
Oh, I hope not. But hey, you guys don't read the manual, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. You guys might.
Well, 7, that doesn't take a whole lot. All she has to do is talk, and then we already look foolish. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's kick this show off. And by the way, guys, we're going to have 4 segments here tonight. We want to get into a little bit of background on Laurie to start with, and then talk about her YouTube channel and her family experiences and what have you of metal detecting in the second segment. Then we're going to get into the Equinox tutorials that she has done. I hope that you have watched those. And then in the last segment, we're going to get really down into the details of the different programs on the Equinox. So you can be thinking of your questions and put those in the chat. Our vast staff, half redneck Mark Hoover, he's manning the chat tonight, and he will pass along any questions that you have in the chat. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Laurie.
Wow. I'm from Canada, and probably back in the 1990s, how I came across metal detecting was actually finding a metal detector in my father's basement. And I got really excited about it, asked him what it was. Actually, I had no idea. Went upstairs, what is this? And he's like, that's a treasure machine. That's where you find lots of treasures with. So I got really excited, got some batteries, went out to the park. Looking at this thing, not knowing what I was doing, I just, decided to crank all the knobs up to max, thinking, hey, max is the best, right? So off I go, and I probably had discrimination up on max because I don't think I got one signal. And I was like, okay, this thing doesn't work, so I went back in the basement, and probably about 20 years later, back in 2009, my spouse was working with somebody, and your typical pickup truck with metal detectorists and all this stuff in the back. Well, he was showing him. He was like, yeah, I metal detect. So he was kind of showing him the stuff he was finding. So he came home and asked me if I ever heard about it, and I got super excited. And I said, yes, I want to try this again now that we're older, and, maybe I can figure this thing out. So the very next morning, I think I was, just so anxious. I think it was 6 o'clock in the morning. I am searching online, and not one single store around us sells metal detectors. So I would have to order it, and I was just too anxious for that. So I actually end up finding a Garrett GTA X 550, and somebody was selling it. So we met this guy out in a parking lot, bought the metal detector, super anxious. This is October. I was super anxious, and I said, okay, I got to go to the beach, So we went to the beach, freezing cold, and Eric is just watching me, and he's sitting there shaking his head. He's like, this is not worth it. He's like, you're finding bottle caps and pull tabs and a penny. Like, really, this is not worth it. He goes, I'm going in the car, and I'm going to go sit in the car. And I'm like, you're ruining my fun. And he's like, no, you stay. You can continue. I'm warming up in the car, So I just kept going. I thought it was a lot of fun, didn't find anything. I was sure I was going to find gold because it kept saying on my machine, it's gold, And every time I pull it up, it's like totally discouraged. It's a pull tab. What are you talking about? So, the metal detector got put away for that winter. And first thing in the spring, my grandfather invited me up to the farm, and Eric was at work, and I grabbed the kids, and I said, we're going to go to the farm. And I thought this is a great place to try the metal detector over there. And here I am, metal detecting away, and I find a large scent. I've never seen one in my life. And I'm looking at this thing, and it says 1 cent Canada, this huge thing. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm shaking like a leaf. I call Eric. I'm almost hysterical. I have no idea what I just found. And, so we discovered it's a large scent. And, well, I'm telling you, Eric, we returned right back to my grandfather's farm. And he just didn't stop. We had to share the machine back and forth, your turn, my turn. He totally got into it. So as soon as I found a little bit of history, he was like, okay, now you make sense. Now I'm in. So I didn't even realize what we had. We went to my grandfather's a few times. And that fall, he told us he's selling the farm. So this was a late 1700s, a loyalist settlement.
Oh, no.
We didn't even know this. This was our first year. We only went like 3 times. And he has like 200 acres, beyond 200 acres. I mean, so much land. And he sold it. And I hope someday to return again and try to get permission there again. Because, we found some large scents and stuff, but I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff that we missed. So, so we actually hunted together as a family, sharing the machine for about 5 years. We had found cellar holes, we had found all sorts of places, and one of the places that we had discovered was a Victorian picnic grove. And this was really exciting because we always did this one turn, one of us would be with the kids and building lean-tos with sticks and forts, and I even had a medicinal and edible plant book that I would teach the kids because I'm like, they're really little. I don't want them eating poison berries, So I kind of took the time with them, and then when it was my turn, Eric would spend some time with them. And at this picnic grove, though, it was so ridiculous that it was like basically just we found 250 Victorian coins all in like an acre area. So instead of my turn, his turn, we were finally like, okay, no, you find 3 or 4, and then it's my turn, right? So
wow.
No, it was like one after another, and this site was, a virgin picnic grove that actually wasn't disturbed, and actually had no modern trash, because everything basically stopped in, I think it was around 1930. So no common trash. So even the squeakers, even the trash signals, we dug it. And I think this is where we learned a lot on how to metal detect, was basically from this Victorian picnic grove, because these little squeakers, these little things end up being cufflinks and little jewelry and all sorts of really, really, really cool stuff. We've been to so many. We've had just over the years. We've been so lucky to have been able to hunt so many incredible sites. We have one friend, Matt Thompson, which we actually hunt a few times a year with, and he's down by the St. Lawrence Seaway. Now, what happened is, in a lot of places, a lot of dams were built. And once, a few times a year, the water level actually will go low, and all these lost villages are exposed. So we've had so many opportunities to actually hunt some really incredible sites like that. We've climbed on top of mountains. Well, not really mountains. I've been told, because I've been to BC, what we have here are hills. They call them pimples compared to what they have. So we would climb to the top of these hills to mica mines. I would have ropes tied to myself and to my kids. Can you imagine going through the woods with two little kids? You want them to go that way, this way, twist, come on, no, come around the tree, And it was pretty chaotic, but, it was kind of a way to keep my kids close to me, and I didn't know where all the pits and the mines were and everything else. So we've actually at one mine, though, that we went to visit, we do have a bear story about that one that we can get to after. That was pretty an interesting experience, but I've even flown down to British Columbia, and I was able to metal detect some of the old ghost towns, the silver mines, the gold mines, and including some of the villages that also got flooded up there. So I'm not sure, have you guys ever really hunted flooded ghost towns or places that they just kind of burn everything down to the ground?
No, we haven't. But after this commercial break, we'll start talking about the ghost town underwater. That sounds like
it is. You want to talk about trash density sites? Now, it is unbelievable. Like, you cannot walk anywhere. And I swear the Equinox is, a faster thinker than I am, because when I started off, it was just telling me all sorts of stuff, and I'm like, my brain can't keep up. So it's like, you just got to really slow down. And it's been, we've had so many crazy adventures, and this hobby has taken us all over the place. And, my family, my kids love it. They love coming out with us. They don't always metal detect. They have their own detectors. Sometimes it depends. My son, if it has anything to do with military, he's right there by my side. My daughter, if my son's not there, my daughter will hunt with us. But most of the time, they actually really enjoy playing and building cabins and, all that sort of stuff while we're out there.
I can't wait to hear more, but we do have to run a commercial right here, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Seven, we're looking good in our new Relix Radio T-shirts.
Yeah. Ken and Mark Guthrie of detectees.com done brung them to us.
Yep. And they makes other shirts, too.
Yeah, boy. Detectees.com can handle tees for your club, hunt, or any other promotion folks may have.
They even got the Wide Pride shirts.
Yeah, them boys does the manatee crawl.
Yeah, scooting on their bellies.
That's what I said. The manatee crawl.
Looks like slugs eating jelly.
So whether you hunt horizontal or vertical, tell the folks where they need to go, TJ.
www.detectees.com.
I still love that commercial. That's still my favorite commercial that we've ever put together right there. Go ahead, Jeff.
A great one. Laurie, tell us more about the little ghost town that's underwater. That sounds pretty interesting.
Oh, these places are incredible. Like I said, I've seen them in BC, and I've seen them with Matt. And basically, you're looking at whole entire towns that were in the valleys and stuff. And as soon as they built the dams, they had to basically expropriate the land and get everybody out of there. And they flooded it. So you have roads. I mean, it is so really, it's surreal, because you have roads that are leading right into the water. And you're like, okay, where does that go? And you can walk on these roads, and you're like knee deep, and this water will actually go completely down where you can see cellar holes. You can make out foundations. You can actually see a lot. I mean, sometimes there's like these big chunks of, I don't know, car parts. And I'm assuming they're all car parts. Everything looks like car parts to me. But, it's really incredible, and it's just surreal that to think that, thousands of people live there. And today it just looks like, it's just a seaway. It looks like a big river, and just to imagine all the people that live there. And now there's some pretty sad stories, but my understanding is there's still some graves there and stuff, some that they couldn't actually. Anyways, yeah, we won't talk about that part. But yeah.
I know everybody in the chat, they're dying to know, of course. They can tell by your YouTube channel that you detect quite a bit with Eric and your kids and everything. What is one of your best finds, or, your best find if you have one?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, we hunt a lot together. Eric has found some really crazy stuff and everything else. I mean, I have the hardest time choosing. I mean, I love relics, so I have a colonial shoe buckle that I am totally in love with, because colonial stuff is very, very hard to find where we are. I mean, we didn't have our area was settled in 1800s, not in the 1700s. So there's just items that you don't find. I've found that. Oh gosh, one that I just found this year, actually. I was really, really excited. It was my 1800 U.S. large cent. I was really excited. It's my oldest U.S. large cent. I found 1820 tokens, a nice bust-in heart token. But, my shoe buckle, though, it's just so beautiful. And I saw so many people digging them. I used to, on YouTube, and I was just like, I want one. So when I actually found it, I was actually pretty blown away. And at first I didn't really kind of clue in what I was holding. And I'm like, it is, as soon as I saw, those two little tongue teeth there.
I know
with the buckle.
Yeah, you get the old shoe buckles and any buckle that's colonial, and they put so much work behind making that buckle. I mean, they are beautiful. Compared to like the 1900s buckles we find today, I mean, they're just a regular old buckle. But the colonial buckles, they had all the decorations on them, and it was unreal of how they made them. So.
Oh, they're just absolutely beautiful, and I love the Victorian era. Victorian era as well is one of my favorites. We found a lot of fur trade relics. I found a bone handle cartouche knife, which is the French fur trademan. It was a prized possession. I mean, they had this knife to eat, to cook, to clean everything, and it was like a prized possession. So to lose something like that was probably meant a lot, And that's one of my favorite relics as well, is my bone handle cartouche knife, which probably dates, I'm going to guess, around the area of 1800 or late 1700s to early 1800s. So those are some of my...
That's great. So tell us a little bit about Relic Dirty Hands. How did you get into the YouTube channel and stuff?
Well, back in 2013, when we actually did find that Victorian picnic grove, a friend of ours was actually blown away. He's like, "You got to record this. You got to get this on video. It's just a find of a lifetime. You don't see this all the time." We were really shy. We found it really hard. We never showed our faces. We're always pointing the camera down, and some of our 2013 videos are not, they're a little embarrassing, but they're just so full of good stuff. But for the editing, and we're really shy and awkward and everything else. But we started back in 2013 basically to capture that site. And it really led to capturing our adventures. And quickly, I wanted to share my adventures and the places that we've seen because, like I said, we've been really lucky to actually have seen some of these locations. And we just want to share adventures as a family and everything else. And that's pretty much how it got started in 2013, was basically to record this incredible place with the incredible finds, and led one thing into another. And we just... kept going, and it's now been, we're going on 6 years. I think we're on our 6th season of Relic Dirty Hands. So it's been fun. It's like a treasure chest of memories, and I don't regret it one bit starting this. It was really hard, and it's taken us a lot of years actually to feel really comfortable and just to be ourselves,
That's right. That's right. Do you see your kids continuing the Relic Dirty Hands after you're done with it?
Eric and I have talked about that, and we said, we're never going to force the kids if they don't want to, if they're interested. And I said, when they're 18, because, they're flying. Maddie is 12 and Jazz is 11, so time's flying. And we said, we hope when they're at least 18 that they'll sometimes become like a special guest and come with us, even if they're not that interested, just come hang out with us again, and we really hope so. I can see the passion. They're both treasure hunters. They're continuously bringing me things home. Things from that people are leaving on the side of the road to things that they find on the ground. They're always finding and bringing home treasures. So I think the treasure is in their blood. Are they going to take it over later on? I hope they'll continue joining us, and if they want to create their own YouTube channel, I'll always help them out and this sort of stuff. But I really hope they'll keep coming. I hope that, and even when they're 30, maybe the grandkids, and you never know. Who knows how much we're going to capture on our YouTube. But already when we started, on YouTube in 2013, the kids were so little. And you don't see them grow up that fast, but when you start looking at the older videos, you're like, look at their little voices and their little hands, and they're holding these large scents, and their hands are so tiny. It's just absolutely adorable. So I really hope that they come with us when they're older. But it's up to them. We're not going to force them. If they're not interested, they're not interested. But if they are, then, I mean, hey, we're going to have fun. And it's so awesome how much fun I have and be able to share this with them. And I just feel really, really, really thankful that I can share it with my whole family. We're all interested. I mean, I don't know how many times all of our heads are pushing up against each other, looking in the hole, and it's like we're all, and they were just itty bitty, and we'd find something, and Eric and I would be super excited. They're jumping up in the air, all excited for us. And I look at her, I'm like, I don't even know if they know why they're excited, but they're just so happy for Mom and Dad right now. So I just think metal detecting as a family is just, we've had so much fun, and it's brought us so close. I mean, we're such a close family, and we do everything together, and, I just hope it continues forever. Yeah,
you're sharing memories there with them, and you're planting a seed as well, that they are seeing that, the discovery of history is something that's exciting. They've held it in their hands and everything.
They know so much about history, and we've been to their school, actually, to talk about the fur trade era. We did a whole presentation, got to show them the relics that we have found, and the kids, I mean, since they were little, we would start explaining to them, can you imagine back in the day they didn't have cars, they were coming down here, this is a wagon road, and their eyes would be big, and when we'd find something, we'd, show them this is what they used, and the kids, they love history, adore history, and their eyes get so big, and they love the stories, and it, to them, they don't know how they, to them, it's hard for them to wrap their, no cars, no phones, they couldn't even go to the store, so they love the history, and they always bring home history books from the library. I'm like, really, history books? And they're like, yeah, this is all about Egypt, and they love their history, and I think we did plant the seed for the history part of it.
And I think when you put a relic, a piece of history in the hand of a young person, I know that I go to the schools here in our county, and I do presentations on the Civil War and colonial history in our area here. And, when you first go in, kids seem disinterested in it, but I always take relics. And I will say, I'm going to let each one of you now hold one of these bullets from the Civil War. And you just see a complete change in their whole attitude about history. Yeah. When you can reach and touch and feel something, and then know the story that you're looking at something that's 100, 150, 200 years old, it just blows your mind away.
Absolutely. We passed around all the relics from the fur trade, and everybody got to touch them and see them. And this is one thing that is really great. Is like you said, as soon as they hold it, it's like you could just see the face, their expressions. Like, wow, wow, this is so neat. And I think all kids really have that little spark in them for history. And like you said, if they hold it and if they see it, it's there we go, visual, right?
That's it.
The kids like visual. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I took my Avery. He's my youngest, and he was 17 months at the time. Of course, we were at our old home site, and just I was pushing him around in a stroller, and then of course we found our first Civil War bullet together, and of course his eyes lit up too. All he wanted to do is eat it, and then I was like, "No, you can't do that." So I'm hoping one of these days when he gets older and can walk, with the rest of Seven and I, he can share in our adventures with us.
Oh, that's it's we have a lot of memories, and like I said, even with Matt, he brings his little guy, and his little guy is about 4 years old now, and oh my gosh, he takes their coins and he steals them and he runs away to go and show our kids. But they get so excited. I mean, you could see him when we pulled it out. He's only 4 years old, but he got so excited. He smashed both fists down on the ground and he's like, "Yeah!" And he is only 4 years old. So it's incredible. I really think. Kids love this. I mean, they have wild imaginations and they all want treasure. I don't know, maybe it's just me as a kid that I just, was always dreaming of finding treasures everywhere. But I don't know. I think, it's embedded in kids, and bringing them along when they're young. I mean, it's changed our kids. I mean, our kids are not gamers. They're not often on the, on the TVs all the time. They want to be outside. They want to explore. And I really feel that bringing them with us, and we didn't force them. They enjoyed it. But bringing them out there all the time and on weekends, it's just, they love the outdoors. And they're just outdoor kids, so it's a lot of benefits to metal detecting with your family.
Yeah, and you've done a great job with it. We need to take a break and run one more commercial here, and we'll be right back. If your passion is metal detecting, then you know how much your success is based on the equipment you use. Let my buddy Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, help you with that. Tim is an authorized dealer of Minelab, Garrett, XP-DES, and macro detectors and supplies, and also carries many aftermarket items. Murray Branch Outdoors is not only competitive in their prices, but the service after the sale is second to none. Tim not only sells detectors, he uses them, and so he can answer any question that you might have. Murray Branch Outdoors also deals in used detectors, and he'll take your old detector in on trade when you decide to upgrade. So give Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors a call at 615-948-4611 or visit his website at www.murraybranchoutdoors.com, and be sure and tell him Relics Radio sent you. And if you have detector needs, contact our friend Tim Henderson at Murray Branch Outdoors. There's no sense in you people having to share one detector. Get you another one for the whole family. And Laurie, you were talking about your kids and everything. Actually, your kids kind of helped you brainstorm about these Equinox tutorials, didn't they?
Accidentally, yeah. When I was out in BC, we were dealing with the kids in school, and for the longest time, I mean, ever since they started reading and writing, there's been a lot of difficulty, but yet my children are little geniuses at math and science, and it really stemmed down to them having difficulty. Now, we've had attention deficit disorder in our family as well, so we had them diagnosed, and my son was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, but my daughter, she was, very quiet, and kind of the school system weren't even kind of hardly noticing her, and I'm like kind of waving my hands at them. And when I was out in BC, I was talking to the people where I was staying, and the gentleman said to me, he goes, "Laurie, have you ever heard of dyslexia?" And I'm like, "Dyslexia? Yeah, Eric's brother has dyslexia, and this sort of stuff," because their daughter had to deal with it. He goes, "Everything you're describing about your kids right now, it sounds like they have dyslexia." So when I got back, I kind of put my foot down and said, "Listen, these guys need to get tested." And sure enough, the test results came back, and they were dyslexic. So all of these years, and I mean, they've worked hard, and they really pushed themselves. And like I said, their marks were like impeccable in all the other things except when it came to the reading and the writing. So throughout, we had different meetings, and they came up with an approach, and it was basically audio, and audio assistance, because a lot of the books and stuff they were reading was basically for comprehension and not how good you can read. So they gave my kids both a computer and had an audio tutorial, and they were using audio and visual tutorials. And their grades, like, it was impeccable. Their self-esteem, everything just skyrocketed. And I was so excited. And at the same time, I couldn't get my head around the manual. And like I said, you guys, I read it over and over and over and over and over again, trying to figure this out, trying to figure out the machine. And I said, "Man, I need an audio tutorial. I need somebody, because I'm so focused." And when I read, everything's like block letters. I haven't been diagnosed, but everything's like 3D block letters. When I get to the end of the line, I'm lost. I can't find it on the other part of the line, and all sorts of stuff. And if I don't understand something, I'm completely lost on everything. So I have to stop, take a look, reread it, and keep going. And I really wish I had one of these tools. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to create this. So I'm like, okay, I can narrate something, but YouTube, it's visual as well. So I had to come up with a way to do an audio-visual tutorial, and it's all the facts. It's everything that's in the manual. But I've kind of designed it where I compare one to the other. So instead of just saying, oh, this is all about Park 1 or this is all about Park 2, I actually compare side by side because for me, I found it a lot easier to see them both and say, okay, this is what the difference is, right? So by the time I finished reading one, I'd forget about the other. So I decided to create this Equinox tutorial. And it was definitely inspired by my children of the discovery of their dyslexia. And I want to help others. And I actually had done some research, and I was actually really blown away that 65% of the population are visual learners and 30% are audio. So there's actually a lot more people out there that actually have difficulty when it comes to reading instruction manuals. It looks like 70 to 80% of those people that have difficulty learning, not learning, but reading, actually are most likely to have dyslexia. I'm like, wow, this is mind-blowing. So I figured this technique, if this can help, this doesn't only help people that have dyslexia, but it's going to help, everybody, even people who do read the manual. I mean, the visualization, and there's stuff that you just miss. You read it and you forget about it and you move on. And there was so many things that I found myself doing that as well. So this is why I created the audio-visual tutorial, because there's just so much misleading information out there, so incomplete information there about the Equinox, and I just kind of really wanted to simplify this manual and give everybody else another tool that they can use. That if they know all the basics, they know everything about this machine, I can't give them a secret setting. I'm sorry. If everybody's here to hear a secret setting of mine, it's not going to happen. Because my secret setting is knowing this machine, knowing what all the functions does. Once you know that, it's like a light switch turns on, and it's like you can tweak it. You can make those decisions and make your own programs that work for you, and that may work for this guy but doesn't work for you, right? So this is why I made it.
Yeah, and
wow.
Yeah, I want to throw something in here as well. In the description on this show, on Spreaker, I have a link to RELIC DIRTYHANDS. That is her YouTube channel, and it has all of the Equinox tutorials there and her other videos, too, of the adventures and things that they do. And also I have your Facebook group, the link to it. And following the show, we'll put both of those links on the Redux Radio Facebook group page, so you guys can go and find those. And we can bleed on in if you want to into the next segment, because I know everybody was wanting to know different things about the Equinox and the details about it and settings and things like that. But I'm going to give Jeff an opportunity. You may have a question to or a direction that you want to go.
Well, I mean, I was just, the Equinox details, that's going to be, I mean, we could do the rest of the show and probably all the way up till this time tomorrow on all the questions that everybody's going to have. But in between the 600 and 800, what is the difference, the main difference for any relic hunter? I mean, just for the relic hunters. Oh,
just for the relic hunters. Okay, between the 800 and 600, the 800 is actually has a faster recovery speed than the 600. So as a relic hunter, you're digging in high trash density sites. So the 800 has a little faster recovery speed. So I was told it was a little deeper, but I don't know. I can't really say if that's right or not, but I know as a relic hunter, the wireless, I mean, you can put wireless on the 600 as well, but for me, that was,
and go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, there's other differences, but I mean, that's with the gold mode and single frequency. Some of that, you don't have the higher single frequency usages on the 600 versus the 800 and so on. But as a relic hunter, I guess faster recovery speed is a good one.
Okay. Yeah. On the 600, okay, we've got 5, 10, and 15 in the frequencies. And then, of course, the 800 has the, 20 and 40 extra?
That's correct. But actually both models actually are using all the same frequencies. So in multi-frequency. You do have all the frequencies. It's just that you can't use it as a single frequency.
Okay, so the
machine,
600 has 5, 10,
40.
15, 20, and 40.
The 800, yes.
What the 600, does it have the 5, 10, 15, 20, and 40?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it doesn't have the 20 and 40, but it uses the 20-40 in multi, but you can't use it as a single frequency, so you can't throw it into 20 or 40 if you're looking for gold, like shallow gold on the beach and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the and that was a misconception whenever this machine first came out, because a lot of people said you're losing those two high frequencies. And when we had Debbie from Minelab on, she had talked to the engineers, and the engineer said, if you're running in multi-frequency, you have the same processor, exact same processor in the 600 and the 800. The only thing the 800 will allow you to do is to run a single frequency in those two higher frequencies that you can't do on the 600. But if you're running multi-frequency, which that's the way we run all the time anyway, there's not any difference between the two, other than you do have a little bit more, as you said, recovery speed.
Recovery speed, but there's also a lot of other adjustments that you can make with the 800 that you can't with the 600. So the 800 actually gives you more options on, changing your target tones, I believe, and you can change more. You have more adjustments on the 800, so you can really tweak it, a lot more than the 600 is. So there's small differences, small adjustments.
And people that ran the CTX, you had the same options on it. You could move a nickel signal into sound like silver if you wanted to by changing the individual tones. You can't do that on a 600, which I never did do it on the CTX, because I want to hear each of those tones and the way that they naturally sound. That's the only way I think you can learn to hunt by sound.
Yeah, on the 600, I think you can only adjust the Ferris, so just the first section is the only one that you can adjust on the 600. But that's exactly it. But we're all individuals, right? We all, certain things we like to hear more than others. Some people like to put more emphasis on higher tones. And, if they're a relic hunter, they may not want it to sound like a mid-tone. They might be like more of a higher tone, right? So this is what's so amazing about this machine is everybody can adjust it to their likings, their specific needs. And it's just such a great versatile machine.
That's right. I had a good friend of mine. He had the GPX, and he was always fussing, well, this coil's bad. And, of course, the dealer would give him a new coil, and he was like, well, this is bad. So finally he was at the dealership one day, and then, of course, he was like, well, why can't you hear about this machine? And he was like, well, I can't remember what it was. It was maybe a nickel, and he went over the nickel. And then he's like, it doesn't pick it up. I can't hear that. And, of course, everybody in the room was like, well, you can't hear that? And he's like, no, I can't hear that. And he said, well, we all hear it, and then that's where you can adjust your tone. And then, of course, finally they adjusted it where he could hear it.
He was tone deaf in that frequency, wasn't he?
Yep, sure was. And I'm tone deaf in high frequencies.
Yeah.
Wow. So this actually is a really good option.
Yeah.
It's a really good option. Like, I haven't seen the need for it myself, but, I mean, if you're tone deaf, that would definitely be an advantage.
Yeah. And they're talking in the chat. Mark Hoover put in there, we are going to give away an Equinox 600 sometime this quarter, which will be the end of March, will be the end of the quarter. But on one of these shows coming up, probably in March, we're going to give away an Equinox 600. We'll have all the details on the Relics Radio Facebook group page there. Go ahead, and we're about 2 minutes away from a commercial, but we can go ahead and start in on the different programs that it actually has and talk about the difference between those. That's a big question a lot of people have.
There's a lot of people don't realize that there are quite a lot of differences between search mode 1 and 2. I mean, with so first of all, with search mode 1 in park and field modes, in the search profile 1, it uses a lower frequency. So the lower frequencies are actually boosted. I mean, they're using multi, but the lower ones are being boosted, whereas in Park 2 and Field 2, it's the higher frequencies that are boosted. So this does make a big enough difference between Park 1 and Park 2. Now, they are set, one set to 5-tone, the other one's 50-tone, but this can all be changed. If you love your 50-tone and you don't want to be hunting the itty-bitties, then you can throw it into Field 1 or Park 1 and actually set it so you have your 50 tones. So it's an absolutely amazing machine for that. It's something else a lot of people don't realize. They're like, no, I love 1 because I can't handle 50 tones. Well, guess what? You can throw it in 2 and change that to 5 tones if you like it. So that's really, really exciting. But also, there's also target sizes. Now, Field 1, you're looking for, it'll pick up, the coins and larger jewelry and stuff like this. Whereas Field or Search Mode 2, it actually searches for a larger target size range. So you're going to be finding the smaller jewelry and the itty-bitties in 2 versus 1. So already there's those differences. Except for the gold mode, it has the 1 tone, and you can actually change that.
Yeah.
There's there's quite a load of differences, and I do show them in my tutorials on the differences between 1 and 2. So, like I said, they're so well set. I love the default settings. I really do. I mean, I've seen a lot of people change them up right away, but their default settings were really well thought of. And if you know why you want to use 1 or when to use 2, it makes life a lot easier. I was in one field where I was just hunting so much little pieces of kettle metal, and these are little itty-bitty pieces on the farm, and I was getting tired of it because, I just wanted to find something good. So I throw it into Field 1, and all of a sudden, I'm not digging those itty-bitties and those little whispers and little fussing. And, there's a lot less noise on 1 than there is on 2. And I think also, like Park, they always say if somebody is going to start detecting with the Equinox, to start in Park 1. I kind of know why. With Park 1, you're not picking up the itty-bitties and stuff. And, and 2 also will pick up coins on the edge. And that's how it really picks up the smaller things. But in Field 1, oh no, I lost my train of thought where I was going with that.
Well, while you're doing that, let's run a commercial and then we'll be right back. I'll bail you out on that. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger Magazine. Butch and Anita Holcomb are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger Magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger Magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671. And be sure and tell them that you heard it on Relics Radio. And while we're talking about American Digger Magazine, I want to put in another plug for Butch and Anita's magazine, and the fact that I have a feature article in this edition, the January-February issue. It is The Great Silver Hoard with Jeff Ford, Wes Stringer, and Chris Amsoff. Pick up a copy of that. And we've got some questions in the chat, don't we, Jeff?
We sure do. Little Fork Ranger wants to know, what machine did you start out with? It was the Garrett, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Garrett, the green machine. I think it's a GTA 550 or GTA X 550 was that one. That's the one we started with. We got it out of a chunk of a car in the parking lot, and off we went. But we really, really felt that we weren't getting the depth with it. We weren't really sure, and this is actually when we purchased our MXT Pro afterwards and shared that one for about 7 years. And then we went off to the MX Sport. I bought the MX Sport for about 2 years, and as soon as the Equinox came out, I jumped on it, and I was so happy. So that's pretty much what we use. We have a Safari as well. Maddie has a Safari. Jazz has an Ace 200i, is what she uses as well. So we're kind of all over. We have all sorts of.
Well, see, that's the way I like it all over, and I don't like to just go with one detector because I like. Of course, different detectors are going to find different stuff, and then I just like to have the variety of them. So, we had another question from Debbie. Are you sponsored by Minelab?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We're not either.
Yeah.
Although
no.
Although we've done.
I actually had some thought. I know they have a place where you can apply to be a detect expert and stuff, but right now with my young family and with my YouTube and everything else, I'm just afraid to add too much more on my plate because I've been known to add a lot. So not now, no. No.
Man.
For a detectorist that's going into a brand new site, say an old house site, and you know that you're going to have some trash, and you know that you're going to have a lot of square nails and a little bit of junk in there, mixed with those good targets. What have you found to be the best program to start with, and then would you change to another?
Oh, I would start with fields. See, I'm a sucker. I love my field too. If it's an old site, if you're talking about an old site, an old house, an old farm field, this sort of stuff, that you're dealing a lot with the older trash, which was mostly made from, you're looking at iron and tin and stuff like this, it would definitely be the field modes, 1 and 2. If I'm noticing that I was digging up too many small things, and this is kind of where I was going, if I'm digging up too much itty-bitty nails, little bits and pieces, I will switch it over to field 1. And, and then start doing it in field 1 and this sort of stuff. So I would start with 2, though. I'm kind of sucker for that. I love, I love the intensity of it. I love hearing all the stuff. Some people it drives them crazy, but for me, field 2 would be my first choice, and then field 1 if I was having too much trouble.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we've been running in. And one thing, what do you run your iron bias at?
Actually, I leave my iron.
Explain how that works.
Yeah, good question.
I've been leaving mine at the default of 0. Why? Because I'm 0. If you have it on 0, okay, and you have a nail on top of a coin, and there's only a little bit of the showing of the nail. Well, on 0, it's going to pick it up. But the higher you boost up your iron bias, the more it's going to turn around and tell you, no, that's iron. No, that's iron. So you're not going to be catching all the stuff that's masked. And a lot of sites that we hunt at, it's like sellers we've been hunting for 10 years. So when I go in there, I want to make sure that I'm going to find everything that's being masked. So I have it as a default as 0. Now, for Park 1, for new beginners, they say, to use Park 1, the iron bias is set to 2. And, it just makes it a little easier. You're dealing with less falsing, less noise, and stuff like this. So.
Okay. And
the iron bias, I default 0.
All right. And we've had a question. It was in between Mark and 7 and a few others. Okay. Do you hunt any like mineralized ground very much? And we were wondering if the beach mode on the 600 would do good in mineralized areas.
Absolutely. Now, the beach mode is made for salty conditions. So when I first got it, I went to the beach on a freshwater beach, and I started using it in beach mode, and I didn't like it. Well, it's actually made for saltwater conditions and also for high mineralized. So in our area, we have one site that we have a lot of black mineralized. So if you take a magnet, you put it in the sand, you pull it out, you have all this black stuff stuck to it, and that's really magnetic. And that really, really interferes with the machine. So beach mode is definitely the one that you want to use for black sand.
Okay.
And there's also other techniques. I mean, there's other things that you can also do if you're dealing with high mineralization, including tracking ground balance and stuff like that.
I know it was a few of us, even in the chat, and 7, and we're getting ready to go to Culpeper, Virginia, and then, of course, I'm sure everybody's going to take their Equinox and then try it out in like a trashy area that the GPXs won't work very well.
No, if it has black sand, then definitely the beach mode will help. It states that right in the manual, actually. If you're dealing with black sand, beach will help.
Let me throw this in real quick, and then we'll get back. You have been an absolute wonderful guest, and we are most certainly going to have you back on in the future, Laurie. And that's the end of our syndication, so we can go on with the show now, and I will cut it, and I'll have to cut back about a minute out of that, but we can go on now, and we will open up our phone lines, and we will try to take your calls. You'll have to call, and we won't answer because we can't, and then I'll try to add you back in. But the number is 270-495-0315. So give us a call if you've got a question, or put the question in chat. We can do it that way. So you guys can have the show back now. I was interested in the iron bias as well, because me and Jeff are running ours. Of course, we've got the 600, and I believe that the 600 has less increments of iron balance than the 800, but we're running at 1 is what we're running at.
That's not bad. I mean, that's pretty low. So you're still going to catch some of the stuff that's being masked. I mean, where it's going to make the difference is if, you boost it all the way up to the max, 9, and then, yes, it's going to be saying, no, that's ferrous, that's ferrous, that's ferrous, and it's not going to be catching those things that are masked. But the lower you have it, the better it is. And I have mine at 0. I haven't had any problems with it at all at 0. But 1, it's very little. It wouldn't make a huge difference. So it makes somewhat of a difference.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of our colonial sites. Of course, you have a lot of square nails, and of course they will trick a machine pretty easy. And I found out if I'm running my iron bias at 0, I get a lot more falsing on the square nails than I do if it's at 1. But I know if I go any higher than 1, then I've got the possibility of losing the good target. So.
Well, that's it. But I've actually noticed, the first time I got to hunt with it, I hunted a week in the sand in these ghost hunts filled with nails. And what I had noticed is when you're getting a nail and you're getting, the high tone that's coming in the falsing, well, if you're sitting there and you're trying to isolate, so you're doing the X and you're trying to isolate it and you're having a hard time isolating it, that's a nail. Whereas if there is a good target that's masked within the nail and you're hearing that little squeak, well, it's not going to move, and it's going to be a full tone. It's not going to be like a shortcut tone or a broken tone. It's usually like a full tone. So by listening to the tones as well, you can avoid those nails.
That makes sense. And I know 7 and I, we've also had a problem, say, if we get a good tone and then we dig it and then we lose it. And, of course, you have to flip the clod around a few times before you can find it again. So, but.
I actually read something on that, which was really intriguing today, that somebody had said that, they had opened the hole and they couldn't actually catch it while it was open. I had heard somebody actually bringing that up, or losing the signal, and it had something to do with the oxidization of the item or something. I really don't know that one. I'm really unsure, but I read something about that today that was really intriguing.
Well, I think after you break the halo of the target, the target's laid there for, well, it depends on how old the site is. If it's laid there for 150 years, it's bleached out some of the brass or the lead or what have you. You've got a larger target than you do when you break the ground and disturb it, But I find that especially on flat buttons, smaller flat buttons, we'll cut a plug.
Yes.
We'll cut a plug, and then it will be in the bottom of the hole, and you go over it, and you don't hear it at all, but you put your pin pointer down in there, and it's down in the bottom of the hole. Now, if you dug a really large hole and got your coil down close to it, I know it would pick it up.
One thing I find very odd is actually I did some testing on the buttons just because of a lot of people were saying only dig 20 and up. And I was like, whoa, no. So I started testing some of them. I noticed one thing in field 1, the smaller buttons, for some reason, the smaller buttons were coming in much clearer and more of a solid than it was on field 2. But I don't understand why. But every single time, the smaller buttons, just field 2 didn't like them as much as field 1.
Good. I'm going to have to write a bunch of this stuff down. I just tell you something.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and listen to it and get all this stuff
That's
down.
what I'm going to do.
I had to do testing because, like I said, I've heard so many people misleading people and saying, no, you only want to dig 20 and up, or 19 and up was the big thing. But as a relic hunter, I'm like, hell no. I'm like, you're missing everything because, you know, I've been digging the 13, 14s, 15s, 16s, and a lot of things that people were avoiding. But if you're getting a really clear, solid tone on that, I mean, you're looking at relics, you're looking at little buttons, you're looking at harmonica reeds, you're looking at all sorts of stuff depending on the size of it. The larger the item is, the higher the target ID is. So
that's right.
The smaller the button, the smaller the target ID.
We've dug cuff buttons that were down as low, in my experience now, I've dug cuff buttons that were as low as 8, but they were repeatable. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that we're looking for is repeatable signals.
Not only the repeatable, but the solid, full signal. Like, it's a full signal. It's so hard to explain when you're listening to it, but you can hear a full signal. Like a bottle cap, I hear people giving tricks on how to avoid bottle caps. Well, you can hear it. I'm sorry. It doesn't like bottle caps as much as it likes that silver. You know, it might come up in the same VDI, but it's a choppier signal. It's not as pretty. It's not as nice sounding. Mm-hmm. Pretty. Okay, signals are pretty.
Well, I think everybody understands what you're saying on it. Another point that or a tip that I've got that somebody shared with me, we were talking about getting the falsing off of nails, and you get that off of the tip end of the nail the way I understand it. And one thing that I've done is I'll go into pinpoint, and I'll pinpoint exactly where the target is at. And
it moved.
And it moved. You're not getting the high clean tone off of it then. Well, then you know that that's a nail, or you know it's a piece of junk.
Absolutely. That's what the trick I used always with the MXT for so long is, I mean, that thing loved the tip of nails. And that's basically the trick. I mean, you pinpoint, and a lot of people avoid pinpointing. Pinpointing tells you a lot too, everyone. It tells you how deep it is just by how loud it is, all sorts of stuff. But a lot of people don't pinpoint. But by pinpointing, and if you notice that you're crossing over, and when you go to pinpoint, it's shifting slightly to the right, and you're like, what? No, it was over here more. It's possible that's not another target over there. It's actually the tip of the nail, and it's moving towards that. So that's definitely a great trick of avoiding those nails.
It is. We had a question in the chat from Outdoorsy Gal. Of course, this goes back to the family a little bit. Do you and Eric compete quite often?
you know, I think I'm more the competitive. I think I'm the one who starts it most of the time because Eric has, he's run circles around me. We used to be 50-50, because we were sharing the machine, him, me. Then I got in my own machine, and they were running circles at it. We were at great sites, and I wasn't finding. I was struggling. And, so I guess there has been a buildup of competition. We'll go out there, and I'll be like, I found 2, and you haven't found any. And I'll take every moment I can to rub it in his face, not because he's done it to me. Just, it's fun competition, and we tease each other a lot, and it's just all out of fun. But, yeah, I guess I can get a little competitive, but just between me and Eric, I don't get competitive with other people we're hunting with. It's just him and I, we've been hunting so long together and stuff like that. And I was pretty proud when I got the Equinox because I actually out-hunted him on a hunt. I was like, yes! So, no, it feels good. Like, when you've been hunting with somebody for so many years that keeps out-hunting you, well, when you actually have the opportunity to out-hunt them, and, it got to the point where basically he's looking to buy another machine right now. So, he's been using Maddie's Safari because it's been a little deeper than his MXT Pro, so he's also looking to get another machine. So, I don't know.
And it's one question that Jeff asked earlier in the show. I already figured out that you were competitive because Jeff said, are your children going to take on the Relic Dirty Hands channel? And she finally got around to the point to say, if they want to start their own channel, that is fine with me.
I don't know, No. I mean, they can take over. They can do what they want with it. I mean, I love their help with it all and everything else. But, if they want to, I can help them start their own. I don't know if that's competitive, but, I'd like them to create something and something that they can be proud of and they can call their own, So, I find that if they built their own channel and this sort of stuff, they can call it their own and that sort of stuff. So,
nothing.
Like I said, we'll have them on later.
Nothing wrong with a little bit of competition. It just makes it fun, I mean, it's all in fun. Nobody gets mad over if you have a bad day or anything, And
that's right.
And that's what I love. I love the people I hunt with and the friends that we have, because when we go out, there's no competition. Like, we can leave, one of us can not find anything, and we're still high-fiving and saying, that was the best time we've had, And that's what I love about this hobby. And it's all fun competition, but there's never really any bitterness against each other and this sort of stuff. We're just happy. We're happy that we're there and we got to see them and the reaction. And, I'm happy for somebody who finds something on my site. I'm happier that they found it than even me, because I got to share it with them, and I got to experience them finding
it. And don't you think doing videos helps on that? Because when you're out and you've got more than just yourself out there hunting, you've got different people that are going to find things, and all of it's for the video. It's not really, that you're keeping score as to who finds what.
No.
So,
what's great is the interaction and the learning between yourselves, as well. So the more people there is, the more excitement there is, and the more people to share it with. I mean, when I'm alone and I find something really cool, I've been caught and I kissed it, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that, just because I can't share with anybody, So it's so much better when you can share.
Do the kids tease you and you and Eric when you find something?
Do they tease us?
Uh-huh.
No, they're actually all happy for us, and they're jumping around with us and stuff. They'll laugh at us. Yeah, no, they laugh at us. Not really tease us, but they will laugh at it. Sometimes our behavior. They'll just shake their heads and, oh boy. They're getting in teen years soon too. So, yeah, they're great. They're really excited with us, and we have a really great time.
Yeah, we had another question in the chat from Ohio Relic Hunter. Do you have any plans to bringing back Relic News back?
Oh, my wonderful Relic News! It was so much fun.
It was great. I loved that.
It was, it was really, really, again, extremely time consuming. I never thought that setting up all these interviews, and I mean, it was literally probably taking 4 days out of my week. And, the editing of it all, it wasn't just like a live show. So I go in, I'd edit, and sometimes, I'd have to take an hour and a half. Even once I had 3 hours of footage, and I had to bring that down and reduce it and stuff. It was a lot of work. Maybe when the kids are a little older, maybe in high school and stuff, and I may bring it back someday when I have more time, because I enjoy the interaction, and I learned so much from the veterans. I mean, you learn so much by talking to other people, and that's the thing that I miss the most about the Relic News, is talking to these veterans and these wonderful people and stuff like that. So someday it might. It's not completely out of the works, but until the kids get a little older.
And yeah. I've got a good channel you could start, is like taking instruction manuals from metal detectors and then just start doing videos on them. And then, of course, I mean, every man would learn how to use the metal detector a lot faster then.
You bet. I hope I can do this with more detectors in the future as well. I'm really enjoying this series, and I've become information hungry, and it's just weird. You start learning a little bit, and I'm just information hungry. I mean, I want to know all about the CTX now. I want to know all about these different machines and what makes them good for what they're good for, and what makes them different, what makes them stand out, why some people prefer this one over this one. And I hope maybe it may take me 20 years, I don't know, but eventually I'd like to learn about all the detectors out there.
Yeah, I see a book coming in your future.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe I'm not good at reading and writing though, so maybe an audio visual, tutorial book or an audio visual book. But I don't know. I'm writing is That's why I created this.
Lloyd's got plenty of time. He can help you with it.
Oh yeah. I don't have anything to do.
Yeah. No, time goes fast, and when it's trying to pile up too much, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. So these tutorials are fantastic because people can use them as a reference, as a guide, or they can use them as a course. So they can start from the very, very beginning, watch all the way through as a course. Or if they want to know something specific, like what's the difference between Park 1 and Park 2, they can go and they can choose that one video. And each one of them are set for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. So it's very, very easy. Everybody can learn at their own speed. They can use these tutorials as they see fit, because some people who have been in it for a long time really don't care about the specs. They want to get into the nitty-gritty. And there's a lot more tutorials coming. It's not complete yet. I think in total there might be 20. I have 11 out now. I think I have about 11. There should be about 25 altogether.
If you don't mind, if you would just, if you can, I know that if you put me on the spot like that, I probably couldn't. What's the title on each of the ones that you have out, and talk a little bit about what you want to bring on in the future?
Okay, which ones we have out already? The very first one I put out was the specs. So it's all the specifications, basically how much it weighs, and also the temperatures. Some people don't realize, like us in Canada, it actually will only go minus 10 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit, I'm lost. 4 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. Ooh, it's on my tutorial. But there's different things like this. Like we have minus 40, and I had no idea that I shouldn't be taking out the Equinox after minus 10. So the first one is all about the specs. So it gives you all the little details, all the specifications of the machine. Now, the next one was the 600 versus the 800, only because a lot of people only thought there was 2 differences. And I actually discovered 10. So all 10 of them are in the second video. And then we get into, yes, let me go down. Okay, so then we have the control panel. So basically I go over the control panel and I tell you what every single little button is on the front. So a lot of people may find this basic, but there's some things that maybe they didn't know. Or the terminologies that are used, because I hear a lot of people saying VDI instead of target ID and stuff like this. So even some of these basics can actually really help with some of that stuff. Then we have the quick start and troubleshooting. So that pretty much talks about how to turn on your metal detector and go. Basically, you have to do your noise cancel and stuff like this. And the troubleshooting is basically what happens if you turn on your machine, it turns off right away. So it turns on, turns off right away. Need to charge it. You put it on the charger. It doesn't work. You turn it on, turns off right away. That means the battery needs to be replaced. So I talk about a few troubleshooting things like that about starting your Equinox. Then the most one that I thought was so important is on how to pair your wireless headset or the WMO8 module. Basically, I was in BC and I read the manual. I went out on the field. We're miles away from my manual, miles away from cell reception, and I couldn't get my headphones to turn on. So then we have basically, because a lot of people sometimes have trouble and they're like, it's not turning on. If I only knew that it was actually looking for the module first and then it goes into the headphones, and maybe if I was a little more patient and I waited, I would have gotten them hooked up. So that's another one to look good to look at. And then we have the Equinox Park mode. So in the Park mode, we talk about Park 1 and Park 2. I put them side by side to tell you the differences and what they're good for. So one thing a lot of people don't realize also, they love Park mode, and maybe they're going to go into an old historical field. Park mode is actually made to reject the more common trash that we have today, pull tabs, bottle caps, and foil, where the field one is actually made for the older type trash. So we have Park versus 1 versus 2, field versus 1 versus 2. Then we go to beach mode. We do the same there, and gold mode. So I go over all of them to show everybody what the differences are between them. And most of the tutorials are based on the default settings as well. Then we get into noise cancel. Noise cancel. That one totally got me too. You know what? I've never had to deal with a noise cancel before. I love the function, but I've never had that function before. So what does Laurie do? Let's do a noise cancel. I'm ground balancing it. I'm not noise cancel. I'm pointing that sucker at the ground, and I'm pumping it towards the ground. Then I read the manual, and then all of a sudden I'm like hitting myself in the head going, man, I'm supposed to raise the coil because this is for EMI, which is for all the electric interference, the metal detectors, cell phones, and everything else. So something I did wrong as well. So, it's always, you learn, from these tutorials. So we have the noise cancel. Then the next one, we review the how to auto, manual, and the tracking ground balance. So I basically explain a little bit on the ground balance as well. And, I have more. Then we get into the Equinox frequencies. So I kind of explain the frequencies and how they work. I had no idea about frequencies and everything else. And I was looking at the frequencies. It's really interesting to think on, how the low frequencies are better for the high conductors and the high frequencies are better for the low conductors. So that's, that was really interesting as well on how these frequencies, and it also shows you how to navigate and how to change your frequency. Then we get into the global, semi-local, and local settings. Now this one too, I was paranoid. I was so paranoid of changing anything on the Equinox. Eric went to take it out. I'm like, don't touch it. Don't touch it. You leave it the way it is. And he's like, well, no, I want to change. No, I'm like, you use it as the default or else you're not using it. No, because they said if you make a change, it's going to change it across the whole thing. So I was really scared. So in this one, I kind of explained to everybody what the global and the local and the semi-local settings are. So you don't have to be afraid like I was because really, you have only three settings that are going to affect across the board. And I mean, you're looking at sensitivity, which is not a big deal, and volume, which is not a big deal, right? So these things, if you make these changes, and what was the third one? It'll come to me. But there's only those, those ones. So by knowing what effects it's going to have on your machine, I guess it kind of makes you a little braver to go and explore deeper. So that's pretty much where I'm at on the tutorial. And I have so many more coming. I mean, from how to create discrimination patterns, and also for your advanced settings. I'm going to be reviewing all the advanced settings, all the settings and the advanced settings. I'm going to show you how to navigate to them, how to change them, and all this great stuff coming up.
Man, do you run your Equinox? Do you run it with the iron on, like the little horseshoe?
I do both, actually. I do both. Most of the time I leave it so I can hear it. So I like hearing the grunts with a little horseshoe. Sometimes when I like to call mentally tired, of hearing everything. But I love to know what's under my feet. I like to know because the more concentration of nails I'm getting, the closer I'm getting to a hot spot. So I use that information as I'm detecting, but I'll go back and forth. Like there's times where I'm just like, okay, no. So I just turn it off and I go. But sometimes if I'm getting kind of like a squeaker and I'm not really sure, well, sometimes I'll throw that horseshoe on so I can hear. And sometimes that gives me kind of a hint too, if what I'm hearing is the tip of a nail and so on. So it gives you a lot of information. I play around with it. I like them.
Does it change anything in the processor when you put that on?
In the processor of putting on the horseshoe?
Yeah. Does it change anything else other than
I think all it does is just open up those lower numbers. You're just cutting any discrimination out.
I think it's just a discrimination thing. I don't think it changes anything, but that's a good question. I don't think so. And if I'm wrong, I'd love to know if it does change anything. My understanding is it just kind of shows you the numbers, or it's like using discrimination. You're just discriminating the the fairest targets with
and it's kind of like those of you that use an AT Pro on the iron disc. It's like running it at 0 is like having the horseshoe turned on, or running that iron disc up to say 20 or 22 is like turning the horseshoe off. You're just kind of cutting out all of the ferrous, the lower ferrous numbers, really, is my understanding on it.
Okay.
It kind of sounds what I understand of it too, but
So that's what I'm
wrong. If anybody can bring that up, if somebody can, definitely let us know, because this tutorial has been teaching me a lot as well. There's some areas where, I didn't even think about going, but by starting these, it actually opens up quite a lot of questions and stuff. So.
And that's something that next time we have Debbie on, get her to ask the engineers and just make for sure on that. But that's my understanding of it, is that it just it's just a discrimination of your fairest targets, those lower numbers and everything.
Mm-hmm. I think somebody else had asked us. Well, somebody else asked an interesting question as well. If it uses more power to boost on certain frequencies, or so this was a question as well. That's kind of something that I'd like to know. Does it use like the same amount of power the frequencies? They penetrate the ground. It's not like power's pushing them out, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it uses more power on if you concentrate on a higher frequency or a lower frequency. I have no idea about that. That's another one for the engineers, and I don't think we have any engineers on here tonight.
Well, Laurie, she sounds pretty much like an engineer right now, so she's doing a great job.
Compared to me and you, she's a genius. There's no doubt about it.
Honestly, when you learn the basics of this machine, it's like a light bulb turns on, and it's just you understand it. And it really, to start at the basics, you understand the basics, and everything else just starts, coming in, and you fully understand why. Like I love Field 2, and I'm like, why do I love it? Well, I know why now. Once you know your basics, and once you know all the settings and what they do and why they're there, it's just a fantastic machine.
Well, see, that was a question that I always had, was what really changes on this, because you're running multi-frequency. But I've learned tonight that the difference between program 1 and program 2 is that it boosts a frequency in one, and then the other boosts another frequency. That's something that I didn't know,
Yeah, so in multi-frequency, it's running all, and it makes a huge difference. In Park and Field 1, it's actually the lower frequencies that are being boosted, and in Field and Park 2, it's the higher frequencies that are boosted. So
very good information.
Well, see, said if you'd read the instruction manual, you'd already know that.
You know what? In the instruction, I actually had to really go further with this, because in the instruction manual, it was so hard. I'm like, it weighted in on the boost, and I'm like, what's weighted? And I had the hardest time, and Eric and I had discussions, probably like an hour discussion on it. And this is pretty much what we thought, where it was boosting, So I actually wrote to Minelab and say, okay, can you explain this to me in another way? And their customer support was just so amazing. And, they basically really well explained it, that it was like, yes. But in the manual, I couldn't understand it. It took me a long time. It took me an hour in discussing it with another person to actually wrap my head around what they were talking about.
And all the tutorials that you've got out, you've got 11 out now, if I remember right. And basically they're 2 minutes, 3 minutes at the most on each of those tutorials. So you're looking at the basics of this machine. And you can go, if they're 2 minutes, you're going to spend 22 minutes. If they're 3 minutes, you're going to spend 33 minutes. And you will know what each of those settings is doing. And so then tailor that to the site that you're working. If you're finding too much little stuff, if you're finding too much trash, then you know what to change. And that's what's so important about watching those.
It is so important, because I've seen so many people frustrating, saying, hey, who has a program for this, or who uses a program, or I've heard somebody using this program. And I just sit there shaking my head going, it might not work for you. They're dealing with salt, and they're on the beach, and you, I think, hunt in the forest, So, what's really important is just the basics, the basics, and you could tailor it to your needs. And how wonderful would it be is not to have to ask somebody, what's your settings that you use, but actually find your own settings that suit you the best. So if that means increasing your iron bias, because really you're not hunting and really cellar holes or condensed places, and you're not afraid of mass targets, then, reset that iron bias and have less noise and less chatter and find more, But it really, it's like I said, it really needs to be, you can really adjust it to suit your personal needs, your personal locations. And once you get to that point, it's, I'm in love, like I'm in love with my machine.
Did you, Jeff, did you see Mark's question in the chat?
I did. I had this question earlier, and of course I was going to say it. But what do you recommend? Do you like the 6 or the 15-inch coil or the stock coil? Which one do you recommend?
I actually just purchased the small coil, the 6, only because the high trash dense sites that I deal with. So I do hunt farm fields. But, I got a short enough arm and, I'm not in any rush to cover a lot of ground. And I think those go a little deeper. But, I went for the small coil. And for my birthday, I may go for the large coil. So really, I say both. But depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for really deep targets and you got to cover, huge fields and farm fields, which are so intimidating, there's so much land. Well, then, a large coil will definitely do you, do a great job. But if you're like me, who likes to be around the cellar or love trash pits, I love dump sites and trash pits. I love hunting them. It's crazy. I love the chatter and the noise. But that's where the small coil is definitely going to give me the advantage.
Yeah, that is right. That's I've got the 6-inch coil, and that's all I leave on my Nox anymore. Of course, I bought the Nox to hunt old home sites, and then that's the way I'm going to just leave it. And then we had a ring finder had a question. What do you know how to set the tones for different targets? He wanted to know that.
How to set the tones for, okay, so you can change the tone. You're talking about, I guess he's talking about the target tone breaks? Mm-hmm. How to change the tone breaks? Okay, so this is actually one that I am working on. Okay, so the tone break. So,
I don't know that's what Denny is asking. You can get into that in just a moment. But Denny, if you're talking about what Park 1, Park 2, Field 1, Field 2, what targets that those programs are going to target, then you need to watch she's got 2 different tutorials. The Equinox Park 1 versus Park 2 and the Equinox Field 1 versus Field 2. That may be an answer to your question. Or
okay.
Go ahead.
So was it basically, okay, I don't think I fully understood the question. Or is he asking basically what search modes are better for certain finds?
Yeah, I think that's what he was asking.
Well, it says, I want to know how to set the tones for different targets.
Okay. So I guess he is doing looking at adjusting the tone breaks.
Yeah, and that would be only be on the 800 because me and Jeff can't do that.
Yeah.
So this is, it's in the advanced settings, and it's like the accept reject button. So when you want to get into the advanced settings, you're going to press the settings button, and you're going to navigate over to the accept reject button. You're going to hold that for about 2 seconds, and that's actually going to lead you into the advanced settings to actually adjust your tone breaks.
Okay.
So that's where you would go to do that.
And
the 600, you can only do that for the T1, so the first ferrous section of it. But on the 800, you have all 4. You can adjust all 4 sections, and that'll change it. So so in other words, that it's going to make things sound higher. If you want a mid-tone to come in higher.
Right.
I guess is where we're going with that.
And I guess that you're probably going to you'll release a tutorial on that in the future, won't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just
hang on, Denny. Your answers are coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Denny's as old as 7 is, so I know he can't hear that good. So, but it's coming, Denny.
It's coming. No, I definitely will. Like I'm planning a tutorial that is going to cover this machine from A to Z. Like it is going to cover every single setting. It is going to cover every advanced setting. It's going to cover the iron bias. It's going to cover everything. So by the time this tutorial is complete, like I said, there should be about 25 videos, and people can use them as reference. They can come back later, just watch this one thing, or they can watch the whole thing as a course. But it will be a full, complete guide on how to make all the adjustments and basically why you make those adjustments as well.
And Denny did say, he said he had ringing in his ears, and he just wanted to know how to adjust the tones for his ears. So that's adjusting the tone for like taking a nickel up to a high tone or something other. So y'all were right on that. So you're about almost half done on the project.
Actually, I have another 5 or 6 of them that are waiting to be released right now. So I still have those that are ready to go, but I got to get my booty in gear to finish, because I was originally going to wait until I had them all done before I started releasing them. But then I said, I can do this. I only have about 5 left. I can start releasing them now. So yeah, I got to get my booty in gear so I can finish them. But I still have 6 of them that are ready to be released right now. And I'm not too sure I'm going to be releasing 2 or 3 this week. We'll have to see.
How long you been working on this project?
Oh, God, so long. Really? I've been working about 6 months from the moment when I had the idea.
So women are procrastinators too.
Well, no, not procrastination. I literally sat down and created a lesson plan. So I read the full manual, created a lesson plan, broke everything down before I even started recording. I had everything basically laid out, and I had to write up all my notes and all the sort of stuff. So yes, and it's also been like part-time. I have my kids and everything else as well. But it's been, I would say, 6 months now, part-time working on it.
We'll give you a pass on it, won't we, Jeff?
No, we sure will.
I'm a slow learner, so 6 months, that's it.
Well, I tell you what, you have been an absolute wonderful guest, ain't you, Jeff?
She sure has been. And then, of course, I've got some news earlier. Ken and Mark Guthrie from Detect Tees wants to give your whole family a Relics Radio T-shirt. So.
Oh, right on! Woo-hoo!
Yeah, you just send all the sizes in, and then they said they would get the shirt shipped out. So
those are some absolute great guys. And by the way, too, there was something that I was going to mention, and I'm glad you said that, Jeff, or I would have forgot about it. Dave Miller donated a computer to the show, an iMac. And I got that, and in the process of integrating it into the show, into the studio here. And I'm just blown away by the generosity of Dave Miller. And I put that on our Facebook group page. And then Ken Guthrie reached out to me, and he said, get me his shirt size and his address. I want to send him a shirt for the donation of doing that. So detectees.com is an absolute, they're great guys, I'll tell you.
They sure are.
I love that commercial, by the way. I know you said it was one of your favorites, but I just could not hold back. I had my hand over my mouth, and I'm giggling, and I just love that commercial. It was awesome.
I'm sure when it comes on, you can hear me and Seven snickering as we're listening to it.
No, I mute everybody whenever I run that when I run all the commercials, but especially whenever I run that one. You're not going to believe this, Laurie, but that commercial came to me, and the voice behind that commercial is Plugmaster Ford. That's Jeff Ford out in Missouri.
Wow.
Good friend of ours. But that commercial came to me at 2:00 in the morning. I dreamed that because I was thinking about needing to do a different kind of commercial for them. And so that came to me at 2:00 in the morning. I jumped up, wrote it down, and then began to work on it the next day. And within a couple of days, we had that thing together. But that commercial has put Detect Tees and Relics Radio on the map. That's the secret to our success right there, is that commercial.
That sure is. I think that should be a Super Bowl commercial.
Well, you pay the $1 million, and I'll sure send them an MP3. But you've been a great guest, and I'm going to let you have the last word, Jeff, tonight, because we've had her on for over an hour and a half tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, we just appreciate you for being on, and appreciate all of our listeners in the chat, and appreciate well, of course, we didn't have any callers tonight, but anyway, we appreciate everybody in the comment section, and hope y'all enjoyed the show.
And we're going to have you back on because you're only half done. And full disclosure, Laurie was a little bit nervous about doing this show, but it was a barrel of fun, wasn't it?
It was, and it went so fast. You guys are just so easy to talk to, and it went so fast. I'm blown away. It was a lot of fun, and I definitely would love to come back again because I feel that we've kind of touched the surface. There's still a lot of stuff I could talk about. But anyway,
we could talk to next Christmas about all the tutorials and stuff, and of course after you get the last few uploaded on YouTube and sent out and everything, we'll have you back on.
Sounds awesome. That sounds great.
Yep. Mark Hoover will reach out to you again and probably go ahead and book you for some time later in the year because I know everybody has enjoyed this show as much as I have. And I hope everybody has learned something. I know I have on a brand new machine and got some information that I haven't heard before.
Yeah, we've had the machine how long now, and we learned something in the first 5 minutes of talking to her.
Yeah.
Well, I really hope that a lot of other people, I can help a lot of other people learn this machine, and I hope that this visual audio tutorial will inspire them and make them love the machine as much as I love mine.
Hey, guys, do me a favor. Go over to Relic Dirty Hands and sub her YouTube channel. Go over to her Facebook page and friend her or join her group or what have you. But it's just Relic Dirty Hands, and the Dirty Hands is one word, correct?
That's right.
And I'm not going to
come up with an original name.
I'm not going to ask you how you got the name because it's self-explanatory.
It is.
even for a redneck like me, I understand where that inspiration came from. But Laurie, we appreciate it, and hang on the line. I'm going to close the show out, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. Great show, though. Great night. And if you like podcasts like this, let us remind you to watch or listen to Beyond Sight and Sound on Sunday night and Wednesday night with Josh. All Metal Mode is on Monday night at 8 p.m. American Digger Relic Roundup is on every Monday night at 9 p.m., followed by History Seekers on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Hardcore Metal Detecting has a show every Thursday and Saturday night at 8 p.m., and the new podcast on the block is XP Team USA, and they have a show every other Friday night. Me and Jeff will be back here next Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Be sure also that you catch our syndicated show on the Cutting Edge Radio Network. All you have to do is just go to Good Talk Radio, that's all one word, .com, and just look for Relics Radio. We're there every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern right now until the time changes. So we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us on Relics Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live each Thursday night at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker. Or you can catch the archive show at Relics Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and many other podcast outlets. Relics Radio is also syndicated on GoodTalkRadio.com and has a show each Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Arizona time. Please take a minute and hit the like button and be sure and follow us so that you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at Digging with Seven or Tennessee Jeff, or you can check us out on our Relics Radio Facebook group page or Adventures in History on Facebook. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to relicsradio@outlook.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope you'll join us for our next episode, and until then, get out there and dig some history.